M370, The Lost Flight, a tragic mystery. On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight M370, a Boeing 777-200, embarked on a routine flight from Kuala Lumpur International Airport Klaya in Malaysia to Beijing Capital International Airport in China. The flight carried 239 people, including passengers and crew. It was scheduled to be a 7-hour journey over Southeast Asia, but the flight would never reach its destination. Instead, M370 became one of the greatest aviation mysteries in history, sparking an international search effort, countless theories, and widespread media attention. What happened to M370? Theories abound, but the full story remains elusive. The flight took off from Kuala Lumpur at 12:41 a.m. local time and was expected to cruise at an altitude of 35,000 feet. For the first 40 minutes, everything seemed normal. The plane communicated with air traffic control as expected, flying over the South China Sea and headed toward the Vietnamese airspace. However, at 1:19 a.m., as the aircraft crossed into Vietnamese airspace, M370's transponder, which sends vital information such as altitude, speed, and position, was turned off. This sudden loss of signal raised alarms. The aircraft continued flying, but without its transponder, it was invisible to air traffic controllers. A few minutes later, the aircraft's radar return was detected by military radar, indicating that the plane had deviated from its flight path and was heading west, far off course. This radar information became one of the key pieces of evidence in the search. At 1:30 a.m., the plane's last communication with air traffic control occurred. The aircraft's pilot, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, spoke the phrase "Good night Malaysian 370," a routine sign-off. But after that, nothing was heard from the plane. Over the next few hours, the search from 370 began, but initial efforts were unsuccessful. The flight's last known position was near the southern tip of the Vietnam airspace, but radar and satellite data indicated that the plane may have continued flying much farther than initially assumed. By the time the plane's location became clearer, it was apparent that it had flown far south over the Indian Ocean, hundreds of miles off its intended route. In fact, the flight path that emerged from satellite data showed that M370 had turned back and flown west, before heading southward over the Indian Ocean. One of the most significant breakthroughs in the search came from a technology known as satellite handshakes or Inmarsat satellite data. The system automatically communicated with the plane's satellite communication system, even after the plane's transponder had been turned off. This allowed investigators to track the aircraft's general path for several hours after it went off radar. The last satellite handshake occurred at 8:19 a.m., over 7 hours after the plane's disappearance, suggesting that the aircraft continued flying for an extended period before ultimately disappearing from radar. Despite a massive international search effort spanning vast areas of the southern Indian Ocean, no wreckage was found for months. The search was one of the largest and most expensive in aviation history, covering more than 120,000 square kilometers of ocean. In the following weeks, some debris from the plane, including a wing flaperon, was discovered on the shores of various islands in the Indian Ocean, notably on Reunion Island, off the coast of Madagascar. These finds confirmed that the plane had indeed crashed somewhere in the Indian Ocean, but where and why it had crashed remained unclear. As the search for the main wreckage continued, many theories emerged regarding the plane's disappearance. One of the most widely discussed theories was that the plane's disappearance was the result of a deliberate act by the crew. Some pointed to Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, suggesting that he may have deliberately diverted the plane off course, while others speculated about the role of First Officer Fariq Abdul Hamid. Investigators scrutinized the crew's backgrounds, but they found no conclusive evidence linking them to any malicious intent. Captain Zahari was described as a highly experienced pilot with no history of mental health issues or unusual behavior, and the investigation into his personal life yielded no clear answers. Another theory posited that a catastrophic event, such as a sudden cabin depressurization, might have incapacitated the crew and passengers, leaving the plane to fly on autopilot until it ran out of fuel. This theory was considered in light of the plane's flight path, which suggested that it had continued flying for hours after losing communication. However, this scenario, while plausible, was speculative, as there was no clear evidence to support it. Other theories suggested that a terrorist attack, hijacking, or some sort of military involvement might have been behind the flight's disappearance. Various groups and individuals have claimed responsibility for the flight's disappearance, but none of these claims were substantiated by any concrete evidence. The disappearance of M370 also raised serious questions about aviation safety and the reliability of aircraft tracking systems. The fact that a modern, well-equipped plane could vanish without a trace for so long sparked widespread calls for reforms in aviation procedures. In response, the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, and other bodies began working on new regulations aimed at improving aircraft tracking and real-time monitoring. The search for M370 was suspended in January 2017 after covering vast areas of the Indian Ocean. Despite extensive efforts, the location of the plane's final wreckage remained unknown, and the investigation was officially declared incomplete. In 2018, the Australian Transport Safety Bureau ATSB, which led the search, released its final report, which concluded that the aircraft's final location remained a mystery and that the search would be suspended. The ATSB stated that while the available evidence suggested that the aircraft had crashed somewhere along a stretch of ocean known as the Seventh Arc, no definitive location had been pinpointed. The disappearance of M370 remains a deeply painful and unresolved chapter in modern aviation history. The families of the passengers and crew continue to seek answers, and the world remains captivated by the mystery of what happened on that fateful flight. With the plane's final resting place still unknown, the story of M370 remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in aviation. The investigation continues to this day, as new technologies, theories, and searches occasionally surface, but none have been able to provide definitive answers. The flight's disappearance has sparked debates on aviation safety, human error, and the reliability of tracking technology, making it a story that will likely haunt aviation for years to come. The only certainty is that, for the families of those who perished, the grief and the questions will remain unanswered until the wreckage is found or more conclusive evidence emerges. In the meantime, Flight M370 has become a symbol of both the unpredictability and vulnerability of air travel. As new information emerges from time to time, the story of M370 continues to evolve, with the hope that one day, the truth about what happened on that fateful night will be revealed. But until then, the mystery endures, a haunting reminder of the challenges and uncertainties inherent in modern aviation. As the search for M370 entered its final stages, with the vast expanse of the Indian Ocean still holding its secrets, the world remained on edge, hoping for answers. Despite the tireless efforts of investigators, aviation experts, and countless volunteers, the plane's final resting place remained elusive. The disappearance of M370 not only raised urgent questions about aviation safety and tracking technologies, but also left behind a legacy of unresolved grief for the families who lost their loved ones. Theories about what happened on that fateful night continue to circulate, but without definitive evidence, the true story of Flight M370 remains locked in the depths of the ocean, waiting to be discovered. For the families, the pain and uncertainty are unbearable, and the need for closure remains as pressing as ever. While the investigation officially ended in 2018, the mystery of M370 lives on, reminding us of the vulnerability of human life and the unpredictability of the world we live in. It is a tragic chapter in the history of aviation, a chapter that may one day be completed with the discovery of the wreckage, or perhaps, with the unearthing of new evidence. Until then, the haunting question remains, what really happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight M370? As we close this chapter, we remember the lives lost and the families who still seek answers. The mystery of M370 is far from forgotten, and with each passing year, hope remains that one day, the truth will surface. But until then, the search for answers continues, and the story of M370 remains an enduring reminder of the fragility of life and the mystery that still lingers in the skies. Thank you for watching. Subscribe now and join us as we continue to explore the unknown. Until next time, stay curious and keep searching for answers.